Welcome to the Time Machine. Experience the cancer journey through the eyes of the traveler. Welcome back to the Time Machine. Our guest today is Will Goodridge. Will is an entertainer who started his own improv troupe here in Billings, but his comedy roots date back to his youth. When he was 14, Will was diagnosed with cancer, and he shares with us how his family used humor as they walked their cancer journey. All right, Will Goodridge, welcome to the Time Machine.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. So I'm excited to hear your story. I found you through the internet and was looking at a couple articles about your journey, and it's a fascinating one. So would love to hear from the beginning.
Sure.
With diagnosis, and how old are you now?
21. Just turned 21.
You're 21, and you were diagnosed at what age?
14.
14.
So, yeah. 7 years. Jeez, that's weird to think about, but yeah. So diagnosis, I was 14, September 17th, and it started with chest pains, actually, like right in my center, like kind of sternum area. And so we went to the children's hospital and just had a normal checkup, see what it was, and he diagnosed me with a split rib. So he said the cartilage between my rib and the sternum had separated, which happens a lot, in young kids, roughhousing around, doing contact sports, football, whatnot. But I wasn't in any sports at the time, and I roughhoused around like as much as any other kid, but nothing too much. So we just kind of went with it for a couple more weeks, but then I just kept getting worse and almost like flu symptoms, sick and stuff, and little red dots all over that we later learned were called petechiae, which have to do with, blood-related things. And so finally we went in again, my mom and I this time, and we just did some blood work and another kind of regular checkup thing. And then they came and said that, I have leukemia, They just came back in the room, so my mom called my dad, and he came down there. And I remember at the time I didn't really know what leukemia was. I think I've heard the term and, different kind of cancer. Cancer was just kind of cancer, and until I was diagnosed, I wasn't really awakened to the world of cancer and how many different kinds there are and variations and what the different treatments are like and all that kind of stuff. Cancer was just one thing, So I may have heard of it before, but I didn't really know what it was. And I remember actually being excited because I was going to be in the hospital for a while and all my friends could come see me and I would miss a bunch of school and everyone would be like, "Where's Will?" And then I'd come back, "Oh, there he is." I was so excited to get a little, fame from this or whatever. Fast forward 3.5 years later, I'm finally finishing treatment. But anyway, back to that day of diagnosis. We were just sitting in that room, and then we started talking with doctors and stuff, and they said that it was pretty far along, pretty advanced, not completely like stage 4 or anything, but it was pretty serious at this point because I was misdiagnosed at that initial doctor's visit. So they actually had to fly me to Denver that night, like just hours after diagnosis, to start treatment. So my dad and I waited in the hospital with my mom, and my dad went back to the house and told my brother and sister what was happening and kind of packed some of our gear. And then I was flown to Denver on a Learjet, so it took maybe like an hour. And then I was in Denver for a week and a half for all the initial treatment stuff, getting my port in and, just kind of starting the whole process.
Wow, that was fast.
Yeah.
Like no time to really kind of settle into it. What was your mom's initial response and your dad's? How did they take it? And
I think probably just shock initially. I don't really remember much in that in the doctor's room where I was diagnosed, but then they moved me to a in care kind of in hospital room while we were waiting for the jet, and they put an IV in my arm and, just kind of stabilized me, I guess. And so there was my mom and I in that room, and I remember her sitting I was in the bed, just, sick as heck, and she's on the couch at the end of the bed calling my grandparents and stuff, and her brothers and sisters, my aunts and uncles, and kind of letting them know what's happening, and she was just bawling her eyes out, and I just remember sitting there and not being able to do anything about it. So that was kind of sucked, just watching my mom cry like that, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like it's easier being, the one diagnosed in my experience because, you come to, at least for me, you kind of process and you kind of make your plan of how you're going to deal with things. But there's a different thing for being the person that's on the journey with you because
Absolutely.
There's more of a helpless feel, I think. I guess, I don't know, but I mean, you see it.
Yeah.
And that's why my wife's been just a rock through it.
Yeah.
But there's I had a moment yesterday. We had an infusion yesterday, and it was really the first time in the process where I've seen her cry. And you realize it's been under the surface there for a while.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of stress, I think, with all the things she does, which a mother would do with appointments and doctors and all the stuff that they handle. You said you had siblings. What
I do.
What age?
Younger sister, she's 2 years younger than me, and an older brother who's 3 years older than me. So we're all pretty close and in age, and we're pretty good friends and stuff too. So we've always been pretty close growing up.
How did they take the diagnosis?
I can't really say. We at the time, I think they kind of told me about it. Afterwards, at that time when my dad came home and kind of told them what was going on, I think they were just kind of like, I don't think they really knew what exactly was happening either. Just that, Will's sick and he's got to go to Denver now. And that's about the extent of what I think they knew. It was probably really scary for them, but yeah.
So when you got to Denver, you got a port, what kind of treatment did they start you on right away?
It's so weird. After I used to have all these drugs and everything memorized, I'm sure you probably do right now, but
my wife knows all that.
That was my dad. I had the ones that I had mine that I could remember, but my dad knew just every single one. But as soon as I stopped treatment, they're all gone. I don't really. But
so was it? You had a port, so you were getting infusions,
right? Yep. So it was a few infusions right off the bat.
What was the duration? Like how long per infusion?
Maybe like an hour. Okay. Yeah. It was. I remember Vincristine was one, which that was from the start, I think, and that one kind of attacks the nerves. It can get the nerves. So my pinky, actually, to this day, is still. It's not numb, but just kind of slow compared to the other fingers. And during treatment, my whole left side was kind of fuzzy and numb, so my toes and my fingers and stuff. But so it was infusions, and I think I started oral medication right off the bat there too. Because I was on prednisone right away, which is a steroid, and I gained a lot of water weight because of the steroid, because it makes you retain water, but it also just increases your appetite. And so during treatment, I was just eating and eating and eating and eating, so I gained probably 40 pounds. So I was a little porker there for a while. But I remember that when I first started taking that in Denver, and I was just so hungry, and I made my dad walk. He would go out of the hospital to the restaurants near the hospital and just get KFC and some Chinese food and 5 different things and bring them all back. And I just would feast on, just shoving my face full of it because I was so hungry from these steroids. So,
wow.
Yeah. And it was like that the whole 3.5 years. Whenever I took these steroids, I was just really, my appetite just increased a lot. It was kind of funny.
I didn't know. Yeah, that's interesting. So you mentioned you had the some issues with the arm and the hand. And then the weight gain. What other kind of side effects did you have from treatment?
Let's see. Well, those were the 2 big ones. The prednisone also made me. Well, I used to say that I was a girl at some, because I would take the prednisone. So for the initial, I think for 9 months, it was prednisone every day, which is when I gained a lot of weight and stuff. But then I was weaned off of it, and I was only taking it 1 week per month for 5 days every month. And I would get cramps. I would get hangry. I would be really moody. I would like to sleep all the time. I would get like hot flashes. So basically, my mom and my sister said that I would have my period every month, minus the bleeding. So excuse the vulgarity, but
yes, that's...
So it's basically what it was. Once a month for 5 days, I had to do that, and I would just get really cranky and just eat everything in the house. So it was really weird.
So do you have a deeper understanding and compassion for the women in your life now?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
That's so you were in Denver, you said initially for a short time, and then was this other treatment back in Billings, or were you...
So I was there for a week and a half, maybe, around a week for the initial treatment, and then we were discussing all these different ways that we could do it, and we decided that we wanted to do as much treatment as we could in Billings because I have all my family here. My mom's parents live a few hours away. My dad's parents live here in town, and all of his siblings, so all my cousins and stuff. And so we were able to do majority of the treatment here, with the exception of the radiation, which we had to go back to Denver for, which was 2 weeks of intense radiation for 14 days. So
how was that, and how were the side effects?
That was actually, aside from the steroids, excuse me, the radiation was the worst for me. That was the only radiation I had to get over the 3.5 years, but it definitely had the most effect on me. We stayed in the hotel across the street from the hospital, and so we were just walking across the street to get the treatment the first couple days. But after maybe 2 or 3 days, I was too weak and nauseous to even walk across the street, maybe a quarter of a mile to get to the hospital to do it. So we had to take the shuttle from the hotel, like half a block over to the hospital over there. I remember one time they had it, it was in Denver, so it's a bigger city, and they have a sky bridge, like a walkway from the hotel sidewalk across the busy street to the other side where the hospital is. And we were approaching the staircase, and right as we were, a father and his little son was coming down the stairs, and right then I had to barf, and so I just blew chunks all over the staircase and just traumatized this kid. He was like, "Daddy, what's wrong with him?" And his dad's like rushing him away, and I'm just barfing all over the staircase. But yeah, so it was pretty bad. All I could eat were California rolls, just the plainest things, like a muffin maybe, just little teeny bits, and I basically would just go get the radiation and come back and watch TV in the hotel. So
how did that affect you mentally? And when you have that fatigue, like in your having happen to go short distances and it's difficult, like what's the process? What's the mind? What are you going through? You just feel tired and like, oh, I need to rest? Or
yeah, for the most part it's just physical stuff, because I was a very active kid before that. I was in track and cross country and just running around. We would go on family hikes and stuff all the time, and just the immediate switch the day of diagnosis, actually I was walking home from school as sick as I felt, because I loved being outdoors and doing just physical things, active things. And so it was just a weird swap to just immediately stop doing that kind of stuff, and not even wanting to, just not being able to. I just physically could not walk over to that hospital, or I could barely get down to the shuttle in the morning without feeling like I was going to throw up all over the place. So,
well, I'm excited for radiation. I haven't had that yet. So.
Hey, it affects everything. I was really weird because they never saw anybody... nobody had ever been affected the way that I had been with the steroids and stuff, so that was really weird for them. And then they said the radiation was it usually makes people nauseous and things that they say.
Yeah.
But it affects everybody differently, just like everything else. So.
Yeah.
But and the good thing too is it wasn't long lasting. It was just the 14 days down there that were really hard, and then maybe a couple days afterwards, like a week afterwards. But once I was back home and kind of back in the groove of things, it wasn't as bad anymore.
What was the lowest time for you, and both physically and mentally, and some, I don't know if those are together, but
Yeah.
how did you deal with the lowest times, and what was your mindset during that, and what kind of maybe advice do you have on
Sure.
on how to handle that?
The one that comes to mind as the lowest time, both physically and mentally, was another steroid. So that prednisone that I had to take frequently was already affecting me in weird ways. And then as part of the treatment, I had to take this, I think it was called dexamethasone. We called it dexamethadeath. I had to take it for, I think, around a week, maybe a couple days more, but it just, seized up my muscles, and I had just the most painful muscle spasms. I couldn't even walk through my house. I was just in a chair, and eventually the pain became too unbearable, and we had to go to the emergency room and get morphine and kind of figure out things from there. For some reason, the steroids just really affect me in a weird way, and at that I was also I had gained the most weight at that point, so I was just sitting in the chairs all day eating food. I was bald, and I was sweaty all the time from the other steroids and stuff, and I'm a very social person too, so I loved going to school, and I just was isolated because my blood count was so low and I could get sick so easily, so I was just little bubble boy in the house, basically not able to see any of my friends or anything. So that was probably the lowest point of it all, because even though I had to go through 2.5 more years of treatment after that, I was able to go back to school for my remaining high school years and basically be a kid again. But that isolation was really tough for me, just because I love being and being outdoors and stuff too. I couldn't even do anything. I just was stuck in the house all day. So one thing that I did a lot was just watch the Food Network, because eating food wasn't enough to satiate my hunger. I needed to watch food while I was eating it. So I did that a lot. But I love music. I always played a lot of music. And my really close friends were allowed to come over. So they would come over as often as they could and hang out. And I really get along with my parents and my family well. So just hanging out with them every day was actually kind of nice, and they work from home. So they were always around. So definitely family and friends were a huge part of coping with it for me. And just things that I like to do. I read a lot because I like to read and play music. And I have my dog was always around there too to, help me out. So yeah, I guess most of my coping mechanisms were my friends and family and kind of hobbies I like to do. I guess I would mostly try and distract myself from the fact that I couldn't do anything.
Yeah, the support group I think is essential on the
absolutely
on the recovery process. It's a real blessing to have people around that. I mean, that it all when you're in that space. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's really the most important thing is I found his family.
Oh yeah.
So,
and like we were talking about before, oh my gosh, I wouldn't be alive without my dad coming into every single, appointment, and I was too tired or just wasn't even paying attention to what was going on. Just go ahead, stick the drugs in. But he knows all the drugs, all the regimen, what's next, all this kind of stuff, and so
having an advocate for you is a really important thing. And my wife knows all the medications, and I understand it. I just, if I go to repeat it to someone, she'll correct me, what's pronounced like this, or it actually does this, and so I have the gist of it. Yeah. So I'm not totally uneducated, but
well, I mean, you're busy doing other things. Yeah. You got other things to worry about.
I have my thing to focus on, and that's so that was a 3.5. How did the weight in the physical things, did that affect you mentally, or were you just like, hey, I get to eat a lot, or were you like, hey, this isn't my normal body, or
it was kind of it didn't really bug me. I've never been like a super appearance based person, so I wasn't really affected by that too much. But it was just it was more the inability to do things because of the weight gain and all that kind of stuff. Because I would go back to school every once in a while, even because I missed my entire freshman year during those first 9 months of treatment. But I tried to keep up initially with school while I was still in the early stages of the treatment, while I was still feeling up to it. And so I would go back to school maybe 1 or 2 half days a week and just kind of go to one class and do some work and then go to lunch with my friends and then go home. And I was pretty overweight at that point, and I was bald and pale and didn't look like myself at all. And I would just walk through the halls with my friends and people who I had known for years, elementary, middle school, high school, didn't even recognize me because I looked so different. I remember my locker mate, the girl who had the locker next to mine, I had known for maybe 2 or 3 years at this point. I remember going to middle school with her. And her and her friends were kind of grouped around the locker, and they were standing in front of mine. So I had to ask them to move to get into my locker. And so they kind of gave me a look like, who's this kid? And moved out of the way. And then as I was in my locker getting stuff, I could hear them whispering, like, oh, is that Will? Like, So they weren't even sure if it was me because I looked so different. And but it didn't really bother me. I don't know why, but that appearance stuff, I think it was. I just got to eat all day and watch the Food Network, and because it's every kid's dream to just stay at home and play video games and watch TV. And for a while, it is fun, but after 9 months, it kind of gets old.
But then you have to be the middle-aged looking man in your freshman class. But
Yep.
So. Did you have to repeat any? Were you able to keep with your class, or did that put you back a year eventually?
Yeah, I like I said, I tried to keep up initially, but then it just got like, why add this extra burden on all this other stuff I'm trying to do? So we just kind of stopped, and then I did summer school the next I think it was the next summer. It might have been after sophomore year to catch up. But I did it in 3 weeks. I finished an entire year of high school in 3 weeks of summer school because summer school is for people who failed and need to recover that class, not for people who missed an entire year. So it was just kind of basic course things. You go through the little course, do a final test. As long as you pass it, you're good.
Gotcha.
So that was my freshman year, 3 weeks at the Lincoln Center downtown.
So you were diagnosed at 14, and it was 3.5 years treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And so when were you given the
AOK?
AOK treatment's done for now, or where are you at with that? Is that something you come back for?
Oh yeah. I'm still actually. So now I think it's every 6 months, but so treatment ended for me 2017, 2018. Whichever year I graduated, I think it was 2017, January 5th, and so just before my 18th birthday, and so it was 2017 then, and then I was cancer-free, done with treatment, all that stuff, and then I had to go back once every 2 months, I think, for a checkup, and then once every 3 months, and then now it's once every 6 months, so, and then soon I think it'll just be a yearly thing.
Gotcha. So what was the best part of the cancer journey? Because it's interesting how you encounter different people, different things. Did you have certain experiences during those 3.5 years what would be like a highlight of something you were able to do? Or
the biggest thing, like I said, because I'm such a people person, is just being able to meet all the cool people. The doctors all over the place that are just incredible at what they do and save people on a daily basis, and the social workers like Sarah Blackburn, who's just amazing and she helped us out with so many things, and just all the other people fighting too that you get to meet and interact with, and you just are immediately close with them because you share such a big thing that like I said before, there's people who have cancer or have been affected by it, and there are people who aren't, and the separation between those two is actually a lot bigger than you'd think, because there's this whole world that exists in society that you don't even know about until you're affected by it. Because adding to that, after I was diagnosed, just so many other people that I knew came out of the woodwork claiming that they were diagnosed. Well, not claiming, they were diagnosed. Our neighbor across the street, my dad's friend up the street, all these people that had lost parents to it, all this kind of stuff. When you get diagnosed, all these people kind of come out, and welcome you into the brotherhood and kind of share their stories and stuff with you. So it's kind of something that you don't really talk about with someone unless
you're in the tribe.
Yes, and now you're in, and the gates are open, it's
like a
funny.
Secret society.
Yeah, it is. It's weird. Because I'm not shy about talking about it or anything, but unless I know somebody has been affected by it or is going through treatment or something, it's not something I'll bring up and just talk about.
What's a different journey? In what I found is you share something that others don't, which is an immediacy of the possibility of death.
Yes.
And so your perspective now for someone at 14, even more so, how many kids, in their teen years have dealt with death and mortality, and there's a different process and different thoughts, and so you bond pretty quickly with people that are weighing those things.
Yeah, of the same mindset.
Yeah.
And because that's actually something, since you brought that up, that I struggle with right now is just, it's not something I consciously make myself think about or decide. But like you said, I think that because of that experience, I have an immediacy for just wanting to live and do things because, I could die at any moment. I could get re-diagnosed and have to go through that again. And so while I'm healthy and able to do these things, I want to do that. And I just like to do everything, and I'm always, trying to do stuff and just dragging my friends to do things and all this stuff. And I sometimes forget that they don't have the same,
Yes.
thought process and mindset. And so I have to kind of be like, okay, simmer down a bit. These guys, they don't know what you were through and what your thought process is and how you think and everything. So
Yeah, a friend of mine, Nate, I believe he was diagnosed at 17.
Mm-hmm.
I forget now, but we had that discussion. He's 25 now, and he mentioned the fact that he goes, I don't always relate as much with kids my age. I like to, but I always do with older people, and not sure why.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I really think the things that you have faced and are things that people usually face later in life. So there's going to be a maturity level in areas that others don't have, that haven't faced unless they've went to war and faced death. And outside of that, you don't. Most kids in your age group don't. So what were your thoughts on death? Did you think about it? Did you? Was that anything on your mind, or
no? I don't really ever remember thinking I'm gonna die or I could die. That wasn't really ever a thought that popped in my head. I was just kind of, all right, I guess I'm chubby and bald now, and just gonna watch the Food Network, and I just kind of went along with it. I never really, I don't think I grasped the weight of it at the time, because like I said, I didn't even know what it was, and I just kind of was just thrown into it, and I don't think I realized it until a little bit afterwards, maybe halfway through the treatment is when it kind of like, oh yeah, I was almost dead, and they kind of brought me back to life. So, but I never really thought about dying or anything. My family either were very kind of jokey, almost cynical, but not in a bad way. And so we always were just kind of joking about it, and that was kind of how we coped with it in our family, was just making fun of all the dumb things that were happening and all the crappy things, and so we just kind of deflecting with humor was our way to do it. So we never really talked about the heavy stuff, or I think we all were aware that the thought was there, and we were all kind of thinking about that, but we were able to kind of use humor to really get through it all.
Yeah, that's good, because I think, you're forced to, in some occasions when you're on this journey, to deal with that, and it's interesting to talk to people about how they do, because for me, I had I have 3 kids, so my process is thinking about their life, and if something does, but dealt with with that pretty quickly, and we're much the same way as far as embracing it, and I enjoy the journey. This is, I never have felt the why me. I'm like, okay, this is us. Let's go.
Yeah.
This is like Cassie will say, this is the new normal.
Exactly.
And let's go and let's do this and find the good things in it. And I found the same. Like we were at the Billings clinic.
Oh yeah, me
And
too. That's where I was.
I just had my 120th infusion yesterday, so
Nice.
I'm really familiar with the staff, and they're fantastic. And yesterday went up and was on the 4th floor because infusion started yesterday. So you have your blood draw, then you go see the doctor. They check the count, see if you're going to go forward with chemo, and so I'm not as that's a little. We're up there, occasionally, and then 3rd floor all the time. But I was going around giving high fives to the girls, and they don't know me as well. And I'm like, you're the people that, like, I see they're the front line.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are there helping me live. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, we're a team.
Yes.
Keep doing what you're doing. Like, I appreciate you.
Absolutely. No, when I was, like, when we were getting treatment, I would pull pranks on all the nurses and stuff and draw dorky pictures, and we just had a good time because I liked them. It was fun going almost, to get, it's kind of ironic, going to get poisoned, but I almost looked forward to it because I really liked the people, and they were so nice, and it was fun, and got to eat the cafeteria food at the Billings Clinic.
They give you warm blankets. You get the nice view. There's so much. You get a TV. You can put your feet up.
It's luxury.
Snacks. You go to the fridge, they'll even bring it to you.
Oh, yeah, the Jell-O.
Yeah, they'll do. I haven't done the Jell-O.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's unlimited supply.
What? They've been holding out on me.
Well, it's probably limited. I just haven't reached the limit yet.
Yeah, that's it's a great gift they give people. And I watched them, the nurses especially, and realized they're in this every day. And it's they're special people because, I asked one of the girls, about that when I was getting a blood draw, and asked how it was for her to deal with, the loss, because so often she does have loss, of people they're treating, and it was just beautiful. She said, well, the way I see it is I have an opportunity to bring light and happiness to people, in their last moments. So if that's the case, I take solace in the fact that I'm able to bring some happiness to them. And I thought, wow, what an incredible mindset, and what courage to go. I know I'm gonna bond with people, and they may go, but I'm gonna be on the ride with them.
Yeah.
So
I know that it helped them in the long run. Just
they are good people. So I love the Billings Clinic.
Doctors and nurses and all those people that just day in and day out are just in it to help people. That's what they do. That's their career, and that's pretty.
Who was your doctor?
It started out with Dr. Lyle, and then she left, and Dr. Kelker, who was, because I was in pediatric oncology actually, because that's the weird thing about being a teen with cancer is there's not really a group or a place for you to go. You're either a kid or an adult, and either way is really weird. Because for me was I was 14, 15, 16, 17, hanging out with all these little 3-year-olds that also had leukemia and were getting infusions and stuff. So I never really had somebody my age to talk to or, swap stories with and that kind of stuff. I love kids and I loved hanging around with them, but it was just kind of a weird thing. And I was actually in a documentary. A guy named Hernan Baragnan was, I think the film is out now, but he went to 50 states, all 50 states, and interviewed one teen with cancer, just like what it was like. And all the stories are the same. You're either, well, a lot of them were like me, you're in the pediatric and you're just hanging out with kids all day, or you're thrown in with the adults and you're with all these people. You're the child in this instance because you're with all these adults that have a completely different mindset than you, and so you're kind of almost lost a little bit just because you'd like to have somebody to, somebody who understands exactly what you're going through, being a teen with cancer, missing high school, not being able to hang out with your friends and stuff, because it's a completely different place being a toddler, being a teenager, and being a full-grown adult. So it was kind of interesting going through all of that. But anyway, back to the original question. Dr. Kelker was my doctor. He was a pediatric oncologist. I think he was the first pediatric oncologist in Billings, at least, maybe even Montana. He's an amazing guy. He was actually retired And I had Dr. Lyle, the first doctor, and then she moved to a different hospital, and he came out of retirement while they were looking for another pediatric oncologist, and so he was there for a few years. And then they got Dr. Jack Stadden, who is currently there, and he's just as fantastic, smart as a whip, and knows exactly what he's doing, and just a great guy. The whole team there is amazing. I had a couple nurses there because they swapped around, but every single one I ever had was just incredible and amazing and fun and lovely to be around. And Sarah, the social worker, just the greatest human being ever. She helped us with a bunch of the travel costs and insurance issues from traveling back and forth all the time. And she got me a massage table at one point because of all the steroid, muscle pain and stuff. And she owns a lot of horses, and so she allowed me and my sister to go out and hang out with the horses. And my sister was riding horses. She's just a fantastic person. So everybody there is just a big family, and they're all, like you said, even though it's their job, they're in it as much as we are. As much as our family is. They love us and they know us and they see us so often that, they kind of have to.
They're part of the tribe too.
Yep.
So, Dr. Kelker, now I've heard Kelker Kids.
Yep, Kelker's Kids.
And I don't know much about that, so I just came across it. And can you tell me a little bit about that? And were you involved in that?
Yep, I'm a Kelker's Kid, actually. So it's just a little program that he has, kind of a fund for exactly what I was just talking about. Just if you have some money issues or travel issues, because a lot of families, especially in Montana, because we're such a big state, spread out, a lot of families have to travel in for treatments and stuff. And so the Kelker's Kids is just a fund that is there for families to use for anything they need, anything, travel expenses, if they need new clothes, if they're not a very well-off family and stuff, and just anything that these kids going through treatment need, that fund is there for them.
It's fantastic. I have friends in Miles City, Wake Up Lace Up, Cindy Reed.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about that.
And she, she's fantastic. And Buddy was just on, his mother was co-founder with that, and they've been doing that for 9 years. And that's what they do is they raise money for people to be able to travel, because that's kind of one of those hidden huge costs.
Never think about it. Hotels,
and if you're coming from Miles City or that area to Billings for treatments, it can be spendy, and what a gift. I'm just really impressed with what Wake Up Lace Up does. It sounds like that's a very similar thing that Kelker Kids is doing here. That's really great. What have you what do they do for events, or how do they raise money?
I think they're always taking donations, and we've had a couple events that I've been a part of. But the biggest one that comes to mind was actually last year at my parents' music festival. My parents run Magic City Blues, and they partnered with them. And actually, it was George Thorogood was there last year, and he is a huge supporter of cancer societies and stuff, and especially childhood leukemia, lymphoma society, and he's always donating money. And so my dad actually talked to him and asked if we could donate $1 from every ticket sold to his show to Kelker's Kids, and he said of course. And so on George Thorogood's night at the festival last year in August, $1 from every ticket went to Kelker's Kids. So that was a huge benefit. Yeah, a couple $1,000 at least.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great. Now you have a music background. You mentioned that. So what are you pursuing musically? What's your instruments? And
well, my main instrument is piano. I've been playing that for around 12 years, and all my other instruments are just kind of self-taught to some extent. I can kind of play them, but I grew up just kind of playing music, and I had a band in high school, and my family's always run this music festival, so I've been around that. And currently I'm trying to actually pursue a career in entertainment of some kinds, but music is a big part of that too. I really hope to be able to be some kind of professional musician someday, whether it's performance or composition or, anything of the sort.
So what's the biggest stage you've been able to get on musically?
I actually got to play at the Blues Fest, not last year, the year before. on the big stage. So I played a couple acts before ZZ Top, but I like to say that I opened for ZZ Top.
You opened for ZZ Top.
Yeah,
of course you did.
I was the first one on the big stage, but I actually I remember just being so stressed out for that. I worked for months because I needed an hour of material, and this was leaving my high school band where I had like 8 dudes I could just kind of get to play stuff, down to just me. So I had to do it all myself, and I worked so hard and I stressed and everything, and then it rained. And I only got to play for 10 minutes because we had to keep the schedule, because all these bigger bands and stuff are scheduled at certain times. And so my hour got cut down to 10 minutes, and I only had to play 10 minutes on the stage. So after all this stress and hard work and everything, it all gets cut down.
They didn't want you to upstage them. After 10 minutes of ridiculously solid work, they were like, okay, that's enough.
It was too much. This guy's too good.
ZZ, we want to protect them.
Yep.
We don't want him to overshadow them. That's great.
Yeah, it was a good time though. It was really fun, and yeah, that was probably the biggest stage I've been on. But
that's cool. And you also do improv.
Yep.
And when you mentioned your family and the way that you handled, the cancer journey with humor, I'm not surprised that you also ventured into the improv world. So tell me a little bit about that and what you're doing, where you started, and what's happening with you now.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we've always just been a very jokey family and stuff, and I've always loved comedy and everything, and I've always been trying to make people laugh and just be goofy and weird and stuff. And so when I was a senior in high school, one of my friends mentioned this improv troupe, like Funky Bunch, and I didn't really know what it was. But they were saying, you'd be so good at it, you should go try out for this. And I was like, okay. And I had seen Whose Line Is It Anyway, that improv TV show, Drew Carey, Colin Mockery, all those guys. And I remember I liked it a lot. But then I went to this show, and I remember just sitting there watching this and, oh, wow, this is so cool. This is so fun. And I was just thinking about everything they were doing and what I would be doing instead in these scenes and on stage and stuff. And so I tried out as soon as I could, and I got in. And so I started in my senior year of high school, and then when I graduated, I joined the adult troupe at Venture Theater, and so I'm currently in Venture Improv. And recently, a few of the Venture Improv members and myself, we started a new improv group called Slapstick Comedy. And from today, the recording date, our debut show is in 2 days, so
excellent,
pretty fun.
And where's that at again? That's at the
Kirk's Grocery.
That's cool.
Cool little newer music venue down there across the tracks.
And there's how many players?
We have 3 main players in our newer troupe, and then we're going to have 2 guest players every show, so it'll kind of be a cool revolving cast, almost like Whose Line. They always had their 3 guys, Wayne Brady, Colin Mockery, Ryan Stiles, and then they'd have a revolving 4th guy. So
yes, I'm a big fan of Venture because that's where I met my wife.
Yeah.
She worked there, and I came to when they were building what's now Nova. When they first were building that, I came in there to volunteer, and that's when I met her and my life changed.
Stopped dead in your tracks.
Yes. So I tell people if they're looking for a wife to donate their time.
Oh, theater's fantastic.
Yeah.
You can probably meet somebody to marry there, but
yeah.
Even if you don't, you're gonna
maybe not. You might. There's a lot there you want to avoid there too.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about the theater world. I love the theater people. You may you have to be careful. I love that world. My wife has been doing shows and doing improv for years, and so I definitely love that. So what, now that would you say you're 22?
21. Yeah,
21.
just turned 21.
So now that you've come through the cancer journey thus far, what do you look forward to? What are the main things, like your perfect, future, perfect job? Future. Like what if you could be doing anything you want?
Well, see, I like so many things that's a really hard question to answer. But I've always Saturday Night Live would be fantastic. I've always loved to watch that and dreamed of being on there and just being there and kind of seeing how it works and stuff, and just being a a professional musician, like I said, in some form or another, just being able to do that every day and get paid for it, that's my job, would just be fantastic. And comedy too, I would love to just keep going forward with comedy. I dabbled a bit in stand-up when I lived in Vancouver for a year, and that was really fun too. So just pretty much any form of entertainment I'm diving into right now, and it's really fun, and I would love to be able, that would be my ideal future, is just being able to do that full-time in some form or another.
How did you attack the stand-up? Like when you started, what gave you the itch, and then what was your plan going into your first set?
Well, initially it was I was going to do improv in Vancouver, but it's the scene there is a little different. They have like schools almost, and you have to take their courses and their classes, and then you're allowed to try out for the troupe. So there was no just open auditions if they lost a member or anything. It was always you had to do, exactly what they wanted you to do before you even get that tryout. And sometimes it was kind of spendy, and I was living on my own up there and was trying to do other things, so I didn't want to spend a bunch of money on something I already knew how to do, because I had a little bit of an ego when I went there. Not too bad, but I just already knew how to do improv. I'd been doing it for 3 years, and I remember calling a couple schools and saying, hey, I'm not saying I'm the best or anything. I'm just saying I know how to do this already, and I understand that you have to take your courses, but I don't want to waste $600 on a beginner course, because I'm far past that at this point. That course wouldn't be useful for me, and having somebody who knows how to do improv in a beginner course probably wouldn't be good for those people taking that course either. But they still wanted me to take the course, so I eventually just decided, I don't want to do improv, I don't want to pay all that money. But stand-up was all over the place at bars, and it was free, just open mics, like multiple times a night, sometimes every night of the week. So that's just how I got into it. With the lack of improv, I just wanted to do more performing and comedy, and that was the easiest way to do it. It was free. But I don't really consider myself a stand-up, because I don't tell jokes and things. I'm more of a comedic performer.
Yeah.
Because I do like little musical bits with my ukulele and characters and stuff. So, my very first set, I think it was just some musical comedy with the ukulele, playing some tunes and stuff. Yeah.
Nice. My daughter just got a ukulele, so she's
great.
She's starting.
It's a fun instrument. It's pretty easy to play, and pretty universal. You can play it wherever, whenever. It's a good one.
Well, it seems like with those, sensibilities with the music and with the character stuff, that improv is definitely a wheelhouse for you from the sound of it.
I think it's my favorite way to perform, just because it's so easy for me. It just works with my thought process and the way that my mind works so easily, because I'm always all over the place, just thinking about a million things and doing that. So it's really easy to just hop into a scene and all of a sudden come up with a character or place or whatever. It's just easy for me. I don't really have to put much effort into it. And improv is it's so easy to prepare for too, because all you need to know is kind of how to play the game you're playing, and that's it. Because it's improv, you get all the suggestions from the audience and all that kind of stuff. So there's no preparation. You don't really need to practice or bring anything with you. It's just show up and do whatever the audience wants you to do.
Yeah. Be bold.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Say yes.
Yes, that's. I tried it once and chickened out. Went to a class adventure, and I was like, nope. I was just too scared.
Well, our plan for this new group too is to let people who are interested in doing it try it out, because we have those 2 slots open that are kind of be revolving, and these first couple shows will most likely just be our other members from the Venture troupe, but we have friends that have always been interested in doing it, but like you, they never wanted to go try out, or they're too scared or whatever. But since we're a smaller troupe, we're going to be performing in smaller spaces, like coffee shops, bars, etc. So some shows, they're not always going to be the biggest, 10 people or so sitting in the bar. And so that's our hope, is to, there's not too much of an audience. It's kind of a lower key show. If you want to try it out, come on. It's a lot of fun. It's basically just us up here. Like, nobody in this bar is even paying attention to us, so that's our hope. So if you ever want to...
Well, when I tried it, I went to a class.
See, you and your wife could do it together.
I went to a class in Adventure, and back then I was in the drinking days, so I went next door, and I was doing shots because I had to
okay.
get because I was very, very, very nervous. This was 20 years ago, and went in and I didn't know the games and didn't quite understand it. So I realize now, looking back, had I had understood the games and how to do
Right,
then
yeah.
it would be a lot simpler. But at the time, I was. And being vulnerable and to be up there and not to know what's coming,
Yes,
I was
yeah.
not in a
It's
place
it
to
can
do
be a
it.
little intimidating, yeah.
Very different, place now. But back then, it was too much. I was like, no, if I'm gonna perform, I needed a script and something that I knew when I was going in that I could work within that. So I highly respect the improv because I see the for some viewers they might not see much difference between between theater, between that and to me, and even say with stand-up, I mean, stand-up, you work your material.
Right.
Like there's a vulnerability and honesty and a beauty about improv. When improv is done well, man, it is fantastic.
And when it's done poorly, it's
brutal.
Just see, that's what I was going to say. Like, all those things you mentioned are completely different, all those different forms of comedy. But improv is, you have to be ready to just embarrass yourself just completely. I think it's the same with stand-up too. It's just because with music you can practice it in your basement and just get this song down perfect, every single note, and then you could go perform it the exact same way. But with comedy, stand-up, you write all your material and you think it's funny, but you're not going to know if it's funny until you perform it. And with improv, there's no preparation. You're up there, like I said before, and you're just doing whatever the audience wants you to do. And sometimes it's successful, and sometimes it's just brutal. But you just have to keep going, and it's just dead silence, and nobody's laughing, and you're just trying so hard to get one little noise out of the crowd, but it's just brutal. Yeah.
So people that want to find and follow you, what's the name of your
Slapstick Comedy Improv is our new comedy page.
So they can find that page. Good deal.
And I my Instagram, I also do promotion and stuff, is dr.willieg. So
nice.
Post videos and stuff. I'm trying to get a YouTube channel started here in the next little while too. So lots of stuff happening.
That's good. I have a couple other things I wanted to ask you about. One specific is I was talking to my friend Nate, who's 25, and you touched on it a few times about being a teen and going through cancer. What kind of resources, were you looking for? Did you wish you had that aren't available? Because we had that conversation last night. Again, we've had it multiple times. He'd went to an event in New York with an organization that was kind of focused there, but he still felt some of the things he was looking for, being able to basically, talk to people that are, his age going through that. And it was something that, he was looking for. What are some of the things that, resources that would have been helpful for you or that you were kind of longing for as a teen going through that?
Exactly what he said. And what I kind of touched on was that just talking to someone that's your age, and I think in bigger cities it's probably a little easier and larger communities and stuff, but for Montana it's just a little weird because there aren't as many people, and so there aren't as many teens with cancer, and so there aren't really many to talk to. And watching that documentary, that guy who interviewed all these kids, it seems about the same though. Even some of them are in bigger cities, and yet they still don't have that connection because you're either in the hospital with these kids all day or you're in the hospital with these adults all day, and there isn't a teen cancer ward in the hospital or anything. It's just one or the other. And so, and there were a few organizations. I never got to any of them, but there are a couple camps and stuff that were available to me if I wanted to. I think I was too sick to go to one of them. But I always was really interested in that kind of stuff. And you go to these camps, and all these kids, some of them are still going through treatment. Some of them are completely cancer-free and finished. And you just get to be with these people who know exactly what you're feeling and going through, and just spend all this time with them. And I think that's a really great, just things like that you get to go out and be with people who know what you're feeling. Because like we said, there's the brotherhood, but then I think there's even a smaller section because your family can understand you and they're dealing with the pain and stuff too. But I think that somebody who has been through it themselves only really knows what it's like for somebody who's been through it themselves, you know. And so being around people who have been through it is just, I think it kind of puts you at ease, and you just immediately understand what the other person is feeling and what their worries are and fears and hopes. And so I think anything, just that's what I really would have liked when I was a teen. And I kind of got that with my friends and stuff, but like I said, they didn't fully understand what was going on. So I guess for me, that would have been the biggest resource, was just being around people that knew what I was going through.
Yeah. Nate mentioned that. One of the things he mentioned that really hit me was that, you know, it happened to him through his high school years, and you know, just turned 25 and kind of got through most of the, you know, the treatment. He goes, I feel like I'm starting my life now.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've missed this important kind of, you know,
oh yeah,
forming time, and I never really thought of that, because, you know, he's the first that I'd spoken to that had gone through it at that age. And he when he articulated that, I was like, man, there has to be more. Last night we were talking, and I said, there has to be more, you know, that are people in that age group feeling what you did. Maybe we'll find a way to you know, connect some resources. I said, he said, I'd love to. So maybe we can I need to introduce you to Nate Green. He's from town.
Of course.
And I would love to hear both of you guys kind of walk through some of those things, because I would love to be able to, you know, I always see if there's a need and there's nothing there, well, let's fill that gap.
Yeah, let's do
you
it.
know? And so, and I think with your background in improv, it'd be really cool to to bring something to people. So we'll have to brainstorm on that.
I think with the age of social media too, it's probably a little easier. I wasn't. I mean, I didn't really put much effort into it, because I don't know, it's a lot different when you're in it and you just kind of are tired and don't really want to do anything and you just sit around. But I think that if I had put in some effort, I bet there's some, you know, websites or something out there where you can chat or talk to other people going through it, or, you know, different teens and stuff. I'm sure that there's got to be something out there for teens, you know, since everybo's got phones and stuff now. So it's probably a little easier to connect nowadays.
Yeah, I would think so. So what, to wrap up, what are 3 things you're grateful for?
3 things I'm grateful for. Family, number 1. I love my family to death. I always have. They're always supportive of me in every endeavor, through all the treatment, any dumb idea I'm trying to do, they're always supportive of it. Number 2, just, I don't know, I was blessed with a very good attitude in life, and I seem to always be happy and good natured. For some reason, it's not really anything I try to do, it's just kind of the way I am, and I'm very, very appreciative of just this outlook I have on life. And I think a big part of it is from treatment, but I think I was kind of like that before too, which, I mean, I'm not an overly spiritual guy, but I think that, I don't know, I don't like to be cocky either, but I think that is kind of the reason that I was put through all of this, is because I'm one of those kind of people that it doesn't affect them as much, you know, and for some reason I have this weird personality where everything is fine and good and happy all the time, despite the fact that I'm being poisoned. But so there's my long-winded number 2. And number 1, I don't know, just living, just life. It's great. It's fun. There's ups and downs. It's a big roller coaster, but there's good music, there's good movies, there's good people, there's good places, there's just, everything's great. Life is awesome, and we're just so lucky to be able to be here for the short time that we are.
I agree. Life is a gift. I'm thankful for every moment I get. So thank you, Will, for coming on the Time Machine and sharing your journey.
I'd love to chat again sometime.
Well, let's do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
You betcha.